I always considered myself to be a devoted daughter, someone who would support my parents no matter what, and lend a hand when necessary. However, when money is involved, life has a weird way of revealing people's actual selves. Jason, my twin brother, has a kid, and my name is Elena. We have always been regarded a little differently since we were young. As far as our parents were concerned, Jason was the ideal child, handsome and incapable of doing anything wrong. In contrast, I was a calmer girl who was introverted and bookish. I was always second best, since my parents showered Jason with attention. Around the same time, we grew up and got married. We have a lot in common, and each of us has a daughter, which may be because we are twins. Like her father, Jason's daughter was a golden child who was popular, athletic, and once more, our parents thought she could do no wrong. In contrast, my daughter was more reserved and preferred computer games and books to social gatherings. Although I was aware that Jason's kid was our parents' favorite, I didn't have any animosity toward her. Nevertheless, I never thought things would go this far. At the same time, both of our daughters received their university degrees. For our family, that day was meant to be a proud occasion. My daughter chose a different route than Jason's daughter, who was studying business in a more conventional manner. When she was 16, my daughter began working online as a freelancer in order to save as much money as she could. She had accumulated a sizable sum by the time she graduated. It was sufficient to live decently, but not enough to become wealthy. Our two girls had a birthday celebration the day following graduation. Every year, we threw a joint birthday celebration for them because their birthdays were close together. Jason's kid was given a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz, a brand new luxury vehicle, as a surprise from my parents. As though she had been given the keys to a mansion, Jason's daughter was ecstatic, leaping up and down and embracing our parents. Even while I was very delighted for her, I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. I didn't think my daughter would have a car, much less a luxury one. A simple, "We're proud of you" message, a loving letter, or a watch would have sufficed. However, I experienced an odd, empty feeling in my stomach when my parents gave my daughter an envelope. It was a bill. Long numbers, sums, and a final total are listed. I gazed at it, perplexed. What is this? My mom grinned as though she were giving us the most wonderful present possible. Life is just. Jenny, Elena's daughter, has saved a lot of money via years of employment. The moment has come to assist the family. My father nodded. Jason's daughter hasn't saved anything yet. She'll need help getting started in life. But you have responsibility. You have money. This is just a small way you can contribute. My blood ran cold. They weren't giving my daughter a gift. What they were giving her was debt-handing it to her while rewarding Jason's daughter with a luxury car. And they actually thought this was fair. I looked at Jason, expecting maybe a little guilt, or that he would say this was wrong, but he just shrugged and said, "Come on, you always say you don't care about money." That's when I made up my mind. I took a deep breath, neatly folded the paper, and put it back in the envelope. "Thank you," I said aloud. My daughter started to say, "Mom," but she looked at my face and fell silent. Perhaps she sensed something. My mother beamed. "I knew you'd understand." I smiled. My daughter and I packed our bags and left. No yelling, no arguing. We just left. They didn't try to stop me. I don't think they fully understood what I was doing, at least not then. But that would soon change. I just told my daughter, "Don't worry about anything. Leave it to me." I had her change her phone number, email address, everything so that our parents couldn't contact us. 2 weeks later, I received the first frantic call. I ignored the first one, then the second one, until somehow it got to the third call. My voicemail was full of messages from Jason, Jason's daughter, my parents, even my aunt. At first, they were casual. "Elena, We just wanted to check in. Call us back. Then they got a little more insistent. Elena, why aren't you answering your phone? Jenny isn't answering either. We need to talk. It's urgent. Elena, please, just call us back. But I wasn't doing any of that. I wasn't going to pretend like nothing happened and make them comfortable. For the first time in my life, I was prioritizing myself. The first week after leaving that party, I stayed at an Airbnb in another city. Luckily, my husband was working overseas, so I just explained the situation and told him not to answer their calls either. My daughter was staying with a friend. I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going back. I had enough money, so we could manage somehow. But my parents weren't so fortunate. That's why, in the second week, Jason started calling. At first, it was just bravado. Stop being dramatic. Just come back and let's talk. When I blocked his number, my mother changed tactics. Elena, darling, we're struggling. We've always supported each other. Can't you just help us out a little? It was rich coming from the woman who had smiled and handed my daughter a bill instead of a celebration. Then one evening I was checking my emails and I saw a message from my father. Subject: Please read this. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. Elena, we're in trouble. We took out loans we can't repay. We thought we could manage, but things have gotten worse. Jason's daughter doesn't have the means to help us, and we thought you and your daughter wouldn't mind. You've always been so independent and responsible, and your daughter is already set for the future, even though she's young. We misjudged the situation. We're sorry about that, but we need you. At least call us back. I stared at the email for a long time. It was the first time they had even come close to admitting they were wrong. But it still wasn't an apology. They weren't truly sorry for how they had treated me. They were sorry I had left, and that their perfect golden child wasn't enough to solve their problems. For years I had seen them coddle Jason's daughter, give her everything, make excuses for her while expecting my daughter to be responsible. And now, when their choices had finally caught up with them, they turned to me, because Jason's daughter, whom they had prioritized for years, couldn't help them. I closed the email without replying. A few days later, the call came that changed everything. It was from my aunt. For the first time, I hesitated before ignoring it. I stared at my phone for a while. Then, I decided to pick up. I didn't know what to expect from my aunt. She wasn't that involved in the drama, but she had always been a kind of mediator between me and my parents. Elena. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. Can we talk for a bit? I sighed. How are your parents? I asked, keeping my tone even. They're worried about you and your daughter. Yeah, I said. I think they're a little more worried about themselves right now. After a long silence, she said, Please don't let it be like this. Your parents made a mistake. They thought you would understand. They didn't mean for it to turn out like this. I could hear desperation in her voice. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. I took a deep breath and asked the question that had been swirling in my head for days. Aunt Michelle, why did they buy Jason's daughter a car when they were struggling in debt? How could that even be possible? How could they think that was okay? Another long silence followed. Finally, she started to speak, her voice trembling. Elena, I don't know. Your parents just thought they could handle it. They've always wanted to give Jason's daughter the best, and they just thought it was a nice way to celebrate her graduation. They never imagined you'd leave because of something like that. I felt the weight of her words. But nothing changed. My parents had always put Jason's daughter first, given her everything she wanted. But now they had crossed a line that I couldn't ignore. What about my daughter? I asked, my voice quiet but firm. What did she get for graduating? A bill. a bill for their debts. I couldn't hide the bitterness in my voice. She was silent for a while. They didn't know how to tell you how proud they were of you, Elena. They thought you would understand because you've always been the responsible one. But they were wrong, and they really regret it. I shook my head. She couldn't see me, but it wasn't about that. It was about respect, about how they had treated me for years. They had always deified Jason's daughter, and left everything else to my daughter. I felt anger rising, but I kept my voice steady. They didn't give my daughter a car, or opportunities. I've put up with their miserable treatment for so long, but I still thought of them as parents. I helped them out financially when they needed it, not even a decent thank you for everything. Instead, they gave my daughter their problems, and now they want my daughter to solve them. Aunt Michelle was silent for a long time. Elena, I think they're finally realizing that they messed up. They just don't know how to fix it. Please come back. Let them make it up to you. I didn't know if I could. The emotional toll was too great. But something in me softened just a little. Maybe, I said. But they have to show me they're serious. If they really want to fix things, this can't just be lip service. They need to prove it. Aunt Michelle sighed, sounding relieved. Thank you, Elena. I know this isn't easy. Before I could reply, she added, but you should also know Jason has been calling me, asking if you're coming back. He's not as indifferent as you think. I actually frowned. He was actually worried. Yes, she said quietly. But it's more than that. He's starting to see the bigger picture. He didn't know how to process how much you have done for the family, and how much he has taken for granted. Jason's daughter was starting to realize how much she had been favored by her grandparents. Which sounded incredibly good. And maybe things could change. I still didn't know if I was ready to go back. But I felt like this story wasn't over yet. In the next conversation, I would probably hear something that would finally force me to make a decision. Days passed, and I stayed in my little Airbnb, organizing my thoughts, still refusing to call back. And then something unexpected happened. Thursday evening, the phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but I answered it anyway. Elena. It was Jason. Yes, I replied calmly. Jason's voice was trembling, and after a long silence he spoke again. Elena. I'm sorry, but things have gotten worse. Mom and Dad wouldn't listen. I tried to talk to them, but they were stubborn, saying they would manage somehow. But now, they've had to sell my daughter's car. My heart sank, but a part of me couldn't help but feel like I was right. They sold their granddaughter's car? Elena repeated in a cold voice. Jason's voice was hoarse. They had no choice. The bills piled up. We couldn't keep up with the payments anymore. They sold their granddaughter's car to pay off some of the debt. It's gone, Elena. I don't know what to say. I feel so bad for Jenny, too. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window. A mixture of satisfaction and something dark washed over me. They had chosen Jason's daughter. They had handed her a car and dismissed my daughter's effort. And now all their mistakes were catching up to them, and they were losing everything. I wanted to say something smug, to rub it in their faces. But for a long time, I didn't say a word. Jason kept talking, his voice trembling. But Elena couldn't bring herself to feel sympathy. Finally, Elena raised her voice. Jason, you didn't need to take your daughter's car. Your daughter is innocent. You should have known something like this would happen. They can't keep up. They always expect me to clean up their messes. And they even did this to my daughter. But this time, they did this to my beloved daughter, so I couldn't overlook it. Jason was silent. I warned them too, Elena continued. When they handed over that bill instead of a gift, I told them it would backfire on them. And now it has. Jason's voice became desperate. Elena, please, I know this is messed up, but our parents didn't mean for this to happen. They didn't want it to turn out like this." I paused, savoring the sense of power in this moment. I was finally free from their control, free to be myself. "Jason, you know what?" I said coldly. "Maybe this is a lesson your parents need to learn. They need to learn from bitter experience. If they had been a little more thoughtful, they wouldn't be in this situation now. I hope it hurts." Jason started to cry, and for a moment, I almost felt guilty. But then my parents' smug smiles flashed into my mind when they handed my daughter that bill. All I felt was anger. Jason's sobs echoed on the phone, but I didn't offer any words of comfort. Instead, I hung up, feeling a sense of justice. For the first time, the scales had balanced, and my family was finally facing the consequences of their actions. The next few days were quiet. I stayed in my Airbnb, not answering messages or calls. I kept in touch with my daughter and husband, relieved that they were at peace. They were worried about me too, but I reassured them that I was okay. Besides catching up on work, I wasn't checking my phone much. Honestly, I felt liberated. I didn't have to deal with anyone else's drama anymore. And then, on Sunday afternoon, a call came from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but deep down, something told me it was time to face it head on. "Elena speaking." My mother's voice was trembling, sounding desperate. "Please, can you just listen to us?" I didn't answer immediately, leaning back in my chair, taking a slow breath. It had taken them this long to come to me, so I was finally glad they were on the other side of the phone. "Elena, she continued. "We shouldn't have put so much pressure on you. We should have done things differently. We're sorry. Please come back. We'll fix everything. Just show us your face. We want to apologize to Jenny too." I could hear the pleading in her voice, but I was unmoved. This was the woman who had always told my daughter to be responsible while giving Jason's daughter everything she wanted, and to us siblings as well. This was the woman who had handed my daughter a bill for their mistakes, instead of acknowledging her hard work. "Sorry," I said slowly, with a hint of sarcasm. "Sorry for what? Sorry for buying Jason's daughter a car while I'm left to deal with your mess? Or are you sorry that I haven't come home yet?" Silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her brain processing it, the reality of what she had done sinking in. "Elena, we didn't mean for things to get this bad," my mother said, her voice trembling. "Please just come back. We'll do anything to make it right. You're still our daughter, and we love you. Jenny is our lovely granddaughter too." I rolled my eyes. My mother couldn't see me, but hearing her plead after everything they had done to me almost felt pathetic. "You must love me," I said in a flat voice. "But love doesn't fix everything. All those years of favoritism and neglect you made those decisions. You never once thought about my daughter. Not once." I took a breath to let that sink in, then added, "Frankly, your apology is unnecessary. It's too late now. You should have thought about this a long time ago." The phone went silent again. I felt anger rising, but I kept my composure, as I had learned to do over the years. "I'm never coming home again. You made your choice, Mom. Now you live with the consequences. I'm no longer family when it comes to cleaning up your financial mistakes." A long silence followed. Then my father's voice came through the phone, tense, desperate. "Elena, please. We were wrong. We see that now. We didn't mean for it to be like this. We didn't want to push you away." I let out a low laugh, my voice laced with scorn. "You didn't want to push me away? It's really funny how you show it. You bought Jason's daughter a car, handed us a bill, and expected me to just keep taking it. You didn't push me away, you kicked me to the curb." "Please, daughter." My father's voice was trembling. "We just wanted to give Jason's daughter what we wanted for her. We wanted her to be proud of her graduation. and we thought it was the right thing. But we realize it's worthless, not if it means losing you. They were groveling now. I could feel it. And the power was completely in my hands. The only thing you're right about, Dad, I said, my voice sharp, is that you have lost me. Just because you suddenly realize your mistakes doesn't mean you can get me back. I took a breath, letting the silence between us stretch out. Then I added coldly, "It's over. So I'm hanging up now. Don't come to see me again. Don't contact my daughter or my husband either." Without waiting for a reply, I hung up the phone. I stared at my phone for a long time, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. I had finally stood firm. They had taken me for granted for too long, and now they knew what it felt like to lose me. Their apologies echoed in my mind, but it didn't matter. They had their chance, and now they had to face the consequences. Weeks passed after that call, and I didn't hear from them. The silence was deafening after all the drama leading up to that moment. I continued living my life, enjoying the peace and freedom I had fought so hard to get. I went home and spent peaceful days with my daughter. One afternoon, a package arrived. It was addressed from my parents. I stared at it for a while. I didn't know what it was. I hesitated, thinking my parents were trying to contact me again, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the package. Inside was a simple handwritten letter. The paper was creased from being folded many times. "Elena, we don't expect you to forgive us. We know we hurt you, and we realize we've lost something much more important than a car or gifts. We can't give it back to you, but we want to say we're sorry. And even if you never come back, we love you. Please don't forget that." I read the letter twice. My eyes scanned the words, but I felt nothing. It wasn't enough, not even close. Without thinking, I threw the letter in the trash, a sense of satisfaction filling me. I wasn't angry anymore, just different. As for Jason, a few more emails arrived from him, apologizing for being caught in the middle. Elena ignored them too. Jason had chosen his side, and now he had to live with the consequences of that choice. Life went on. I continued to grow my business, continued to move forward with my plans. Now everything was on my terms, and I wasn't going to let anyone, especially my family, take that away from me. As for my family, they would always have regrets. But at least I didn't have to carry their burdens anymore. An end had come, but not a tragic one. It was a reminder that sometimes you have to walk away from those who never gave you a chance to see your own worth. By doing so, you can finally see yourself clearly. For me, this was the beginning of a new chapter. In the end, Elena had made a bold choice. She had stopped letting her family's actions define her worth. It wasn't easy, but by walking away, she had finally taken control of her own future. A harsh truth, but sometimes, the most important relationship you can cultivate is the one with yourself. My husband is coming home next week, a family weekend after a long time. I'm looking forward to it.